The countdown is on to the Tour de France. Well, not quite, but now we know the routes. Welcome to the Gruppetto. The 2025 road season might now be fading into the rearview mirror, but never fear. 2026 is almost here, and the cycling world has already gathered in Paris for the route reveal for both the women's and the men's edition of the biggest bike race in the world. Before a run-through of what to expect next year, let's remind ourselves of what happened this summer.
Voss moves out, Lecourt comes through, Voss takes it! Mavi Garcia is going to take a stage win in the Tour de France Femmes! And it is win number 108 for Lorena Vives. Kim Lecourt makes history here in the Tour de France Femmes. Today belongs to France and Maëva Scriban. Unbelievable ride from Maëva Scriban. France has another queen. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot has delivered for France. It's Philipsen all the way. Philipsen flying. Mathieu Van der Poel up against Tadej Pogačar and magic from Mathieu. Milan and Medellin. Wow. Pogačar's there. Tadej Pogačar to the line and Poggi joins the 100 club. No sign of weakness for Ben Healy. He brings it home and it's Pogačar in the puncture's paradise. They go to the line and Tim Medellin the double. Wow! Simon Yates has a third Tour de France stage. They both come to the line together. Wow! This has been something really special. Oh my word!
Tadej Pogačar is killing the dreams and the hopes of almost everybody in this Tour de France. This is absolute domination.
The cherry on top of a brilliant career cake. It's trademark stuff from Big Ben O'Connor. Caden Groves is going to fulfill a dream. Look at one for that. It's no longer just Pogačar. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And Tadej Pogačar celebrating a brilliant fourth Tour de France stage win.
OK, without further ado, let's have a look at what the riders will be up against next July and August. You probably already knew that the 113th Tour de France will begin in Barcelona. And for the first time since 1971, the 21-stage race will open up with a team time trial of just under 20 kilometres in length. But the old discipline returns with new rules. Used on a trial basis in Paris-Nice for the past few seasons, they've now reached the Tour. The team's time is set by the first rider across the line as opposed to the fourth, with each rider recording their individual time, meaning that anyone wanting to be high up on GC can make every second count without having to bring a certain number of riders with them. Think of it as a long lead-out. 24 hours later, despite the start further south in Tarragona, it's another Barcelona finish, borrowing heavily from the circuit often used at the end of the Volta a Catalunya. There's more Montjuic and memories of the 1992 Olympic Games. In cycling terms, Evenepoel, Pogačar and Roglic have all won here in the past 3 years. The Tour's Catalan start finishes close to the end of day 3 as the bunch crosses the border from Spain to France, having started the day in Granollers. A new finish at Les Angles after a short climb ends day 3. Foix is next before a poor prelude to the Pyrenees provides the first nailed-on sprint chance. Once in the mountains proper, the staple Aspin and Tourmalet combination will be climbed, before a new finish at Gavarnie-Gèdre. The final climb doesn't look like the most difficult, despite the 4,000 plus metres of elevation. There's already a pattern developing. Can you see it? Well, expect time differences, but probably nothing huge just yet. The organisers wanting to keep it close together. Bordeaux and Bergerac are visited on the way to the Massif Central. The first of the two usual Monday rest days comes before week 2 starts with a French national holiday and a bumper 14th of July return to Le Luron, the scene of a Vigneroux victory over Pogačar in 2024. Sprinters should then return to action, with other headlines from the middle week including a stage in the Vosges that will have a taste of vintage Pinot. Le Markstein was Thibault's final adventure in front of his home fans. This time there's a new way up, a narrow bike path and steep gradients. The likewise nastily steep Plateau de Solaizan has already appeared in the Dauphiné, and we'll get a chance to see it in the Tour before the final rest day, to be enjoyed by the Alpine Lakes. The following day will have the world watching the clock on the French side of Lake Geneva. The 26-kilometre time trial is the only individual race of truth at next year's Tour, and it also involves a climb too. A visit to Voiron comes before memories of Ocaña, Merckx, Roglic and Pogacar at Orsières-Merlette. However, the main mountain tests come in the same famous setting. The 21 hairpins of the mighty Alpe d'Huez return to the men's race for the first time in 4 years. But the bunch will be back for seconds the day after, although the second course is longer and with a much meatier dish. On the eve of the finish in Paris, there's 5,600 metres to climb in a single day. The stage goes over the Télégraphe and Galibier, the race's highest point. Then the Col de Sarenne takes the peloton back to the Alpe via the back way, just as it did when Piet Keniuk won the Dauphiné stage there a few years ago. This is a real attempt to keep the suspense until the final 48 hours. Remember that pattern we mentioned. And after a transfer to the outskirts of Paris, there's another trip to Montmartre, but with the dangling of a carrot in front of the sprinters' noses this time. The last ascent of the Rue Le Pic climb comes further from the finish this year, when Wout van Aert was able to drop Tadej Pogacar. 3,333 kilometres to ride, 54,500 metres to climb, plenty of them right at the end. That is the 2026 Men's Tour de France. The fifth edition of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift also enjoys a foreign start. It's in the Olympic capital, Lausanne, where the great and the good will gather at the start of August. Stage 1 is a loop up to Lake Neuchâtel and back before tough gradients in the final couple of kilometres through town force a fight for the first yellow leader's jersey. The sprinters should get their opportunity on stage 2, with a morning visit to UCI HQ in Aigle before the fastest women in the world go head-to-head in Geneva by its famous water jet. Once back in France, the race's only time trial takes place in wine country. Montbreuil is climbed in Beaujolais before a downhill run to Belleville. Stage 7 is the Queen stage, a summit finish to Mont Ventoux for the first time in the history of the Women's Tour. And that's followed by the longest stage of the week, starting in Sisteron and finishing in Nice. Now, on the subject of the coastal city, the men's race isn't the only route to borrow from Paris-Nice. 4 laps of Col d'Ez, with a more difficult ascent the final time round, keep the women's tour in play until the final pedal stroke on the city's famous Promenade des Anglais. It'll be with a glorious Mediterranean backdrop that the winner of the 5th Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift will be crowned. Not too far off 1,200 kilometres, over 18,000 metres of climbing. In pure statistical terms, it looks like the toughest route yet in the modern edition of the race. The route announcement also coincided with the news of a 4-year extension to the title sponsorship agreement with Zwift. So before thinking of the competition itself, there are 2 races that have the potential to be the couple of best-looking tours we've ever seen. The shores of the Swiss lakes to the Côte d'Azur, plus the architecture of Gaudi to the majesty of Montmartre and the Champs-Élysées. In sporting terms, let's be honest, there isn't a route where a Pogacar at his current level wouldn't be a favourite. Evenepoel would have obviously enjoyed a route with more TT kilometres. Will that divert his attention to the Giro and Vuelta? We'll have to see. Now, we know that the stars of women's cycling will all most likely be at the start in Switzerland, following Livia Dommer, Ferrand-Prévot, all to have another go at taking victory, with Longo Borghini and Reusser hoping to be fully fit this time. The obvious takeaway from that presentation is the new 4-year sponsorship deal. At a move a week after the men's race to now having its own slot. The race is firmly independent now, each stage getting the attention it will deserve a week after the men's tour ends. That's my takeaway, but what about a reporter in the auditorium? Let's go to Louis-Pierre Frileux.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, we know the parcours of the Tour de France 2026 with this Grand Départ in Barcelona, as you know, with a team time trial always spectacular. A few words about the sprinters, because there is a lot of frustration for the sprinters in the Tour de France, but this time they will have maybe more opportunities, between 4 and 7 possibilities for the sprinters, which is great for them. The time trial, so one team time trial in Barcelona and an individual time trial later in the tour on stage 16. Few words about the mountain stages, because I know it's the most important for our viewers. The GC will be decided maybe at the end of the Tour de France. Why? Because the first climb, the Pyrenees, are not really hard. It will become harder and harder in this Tour de France, with the Vosges a bit harder than the Pyrenees, and then a spectacular finish in the Alps with 3 mountain stages to conclude in Orsières-Merlette, in Alpe d'Huez, and in Alpe d'Huez again on stage 20, a really hard one with the Galibier, with the Croix de Fer. The stage 20 will be a spectacular one. 5,600 meters of elevation the day before Paris. Really brutal. Just to conclude, few words about the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, also because we know that it will start from Lausanne in Switzerland and finish in Nice this year with a mythic climb for the women in 2026, the Mont Ventoux.
So there you have them. A couple of race routes to start the speculation as to who might do what next season. That's it for this quick-fire Gruppetto tour route explanation. Along with the riders, we'll now take a break, but we'll be back around the holidays for an extended edition of the show, our Christmas special. We'll see you in a couple of months, but until then, goodbye.